And good morning, everyone. I am Jason.
I am Mish.
Sitting here next to me, this is the Tech Club for today, even the week of May 5th.
Yes.
2013. Yes, the joke yesterday, of course, was May 4th. Joke yesterday was Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you.
Oh, that is a dorky.
Anyhow, we are the Stone Mountain Consultants. Our webpage that you can check out. Our webpage has links to contact us via most of the worldwide ways: email, phone, snail mail, Google Plus, YouTube. Facebook is new. I actually completed that. We completed that, I think, last week or the week before.
The forum. There's let's see what else. There's Twitter. And
whatever
floats your boat, which is generally buoyancy.
Contact us there. Probably Facebook's the easiest thing for most folks. But on the YouTube channel, as they say, you will then get notified anytime we upload our videos to that page of our radio shows. Granted, this is a radio show, but it is a convenient way to be notified when something is uploaded, and you can listen to it pretty much at any time you want, on your smartphone, on your tablet, on your computer. And our topic for today is email and internet, kind of going back to what started the internet, really. Yeah. And when I say by that is internet is pretty much everything now, yes. Even phone service. Think of Skype. We're using Skype right now. So the internet kind of started with web pages and, of course, grew from there.
Usenet and whatnot. Big boards, BBSs, which most of you either old enough to know or at the time period didn't care.
Didn't know what we're talking about. Yes, I do actually remember BBSs, bulletin board services. I even ran one for a while. Those were fun. Those were the days that BBS is basically somebody ran bulletin board software on their computer, hooked it up to a phone line. Most of them only took one phone line in. Mm-hmm. Most of the time it was busy, but once you got in, you signed in, and you had to download whatever the software that they allowed. They had forms. That was all
the start of shareware, which most people are like, oh yeah, I've seen that when I download a free program. It's called shareware. It's because they would release a product or whatever, and at a lesser extent, and they would actually put up give these BBSs big demos.
Yep. I remember doing that, taking like an hour to connect in, waiting for the busy signal to go away, and then connecting in and downloading the latest game. There's our break. When we come back, we will go over some tech news for the week, then our topic.
Welcome back to the Tech Club. This Sunday morning, I'm Mish. That's Jason. I'm pointing at him like you can see him. A couple news items this morning. Is now that they're basically thinking of taxing you on the internet for purchases on the internet, it's going to cost you, because one of the things that the internet actually offered was almost a tax-free zone, because, I mean, how can you tax something that kind of is everywhere? And you change locations more often than anything else. But one of the things is like you'll have to pay tax in where the place is and also where you live. So that's like double taxes.
Right. You see, right now, the company would tax if they had a presence in that state.
Yep.
Like Amazon, they have a lot of warehouses throughout the country, but like Connecticut, they don't, so they didn't tax in Connecticut if you were in Connecticut, buying from Connecticut.
Whereas now that they're going to be forced to tax pretty much up the yin-yang, which is going to be a pain in the butt, especially for people that have warehouses in multiple states at the same time as they're sending to multiple places. So calculating in like, well, this guy is getting this is going across state lines, so it's all mucked up.
Right, and also knowing the tax rates for each state. This does only, under the proposed law, the states, it's only going to be able to collect sales tax if the company has sales of at least $1 million in that state. They don't have operations.
Yep.
So, the small mom and pop under $1 million may not need to do that. So, yeah. But yeah, there's by the way, on our website we do have our show notes, as we refer to them as, on the website. If you go to smc.io, which now that I think about it, smc.io, which stands for Stone Mountain Consultants,
in input and output.
And if you click on shows, and then click on the respective show, for example, today, there will be all of the links that we refer to, any of the articles that we reference, or videos or anything out there. And, of course, and also links to download the shows as well. Of course, you can go back and look at our other shows from way back when, and do that, what we referenced and so forth. So.
Second news item is the IRS is to spy on our shopping records, travel, social interactions, health records, and files, and other government investigators. It's actually, I think this actually has to do with a lot with this is almost like the CISPA, PIPA,
yeah, all that.
CISPA. The new CISPA bill that they're trying to pass. But it's the IRS, because it's a regulation based, they don't need any oversight in the fact that, like, Congress doesn't tell them you can do this, you can do that. Because there's a loophole in our government, which of course the government exploits up the yin-yang, is regulations. See, a regulation is not a law, it's a rule. So you can make a regulation that everybody has to wear plaid on Tuesday,
pink underwear on Wednesday.
Exactly. Odd accordance, and that regulation can be enforced like a law because it's a rule. And that's why most of the IRS things are regulations. Because there's no law. There's no tax laws. There's tax. There's a lot of people gotten in trouble both because they say this, and it's true, is that there is no law anywhere, even in the IRS's own documentation, that says you have to file a tax return. At least within the last 15, 20 years. I mean, they may have, because what happens is by making a law that says you have to, it breaks another law, other laws and constitutional stuff. But if they don't have a law, it's implied that you have to file. Then everybody thinks, oh yeah, of course it's law. Then you file. And that creates a contract, which then you owe money. But in reality, there is no law that says you have to, so you don't have to file. You don't have to file, meaning that there's no contract to pay these taxes. Right. It's all loopholes. That's how a lot of these government organizations. But it's why this is bad. The IRS spying, basically they can see what you're spending, how the money is, and saying, well, you owe us this much money because you bought this TV, and this you're making. How are you spending all this money and you're not making much? Your tax returns don't show this, and so that they can send their SWAT team after you and take you.
Yeah, so this article is from U.S. News and World Report. Notes that the IRS tools will be able to track all credit card transactions, for starters. The agency has also instructed agents on using online sources such as social media, which of course is like Facebook and Twitter and such. and even e-commerce sites, including eBay, as well as data generated by mobile devices. In one controversial disclosure in April, the ACLU showed documents in which the IRS General Counsel said the agency could look at email.
Yeah, just like Obama has the right to basically disappear us with the NDAA, and said, I'm not going to use that power. Why do you sign this? I'm not going to use that power.
Right. The such profiles will likely include shopping records, travel, social interactions, and information not available to the public, such as health records,
which violates HIPAA laws.
And files from other government investigators, according to actual IRS documents. So that article, again, is out there on our show notes to look at.
Okay. Next thing, before the break, is this is actually, I guess, lighthearted, is that a video game studio actually pirates its own game. What it is that the video game is actually a basically the game is called Game Tycoon, Game Development Tycoon. Basically, you create your own gaming company in this game. It's very meta, but they released their own another copy of it on torrents or and basically it's a special version because once you install it and it goes through about I think halfway through the game, it says gives you a message that says where it's on here. Boss, it's a sales report. Boss, that seems that many players are playing our new game, but they're stealing it, downloading the cracked version rather than buying it legally. If players don't buy the game, games they like, we will sooner or later go bankrupt, and eventually, over time, the in-game going away. It's an interesting thing. So it actually shows the detriments of pirating games and whatnot, because you like the game, you want the next version to come out, so really it shows. But it also shows that it basically is. It's kind of like yeah, we know what you're doing,
right? And then just like most of the other social media sites, LinkedIn, which is I think we talked about this last week, but is the professional. I think it is the professional version of Facebook.
Yes, which actually costs money.
There are some things that cost money. Although they have never asked me. Well, they have a pro account. I can still link up to people and recommend people and stuff like that. Not sure what pro gets you, but
maybe a sandwich at Skybar?
Huh?
A sandwich at Skybar? Or Au Bon.
Right. LinkedIn has blown away Wall Street estimates out of the water consistently for the last 2 years. But like all other social media companies, it looks like that trend could be coming to an end. LinkedIn again, they did again beat expectations in the first quarter, reported last Thursday, but the company's guidance for the second quarter came in lower than analysts were expecting. Shares fell a whopping 12% in after-hours trading. It's the company that was preparing its outlook. The business networking site expects revenue for the current quarter to come in between $342 and $347 million. They were expecting around $359.
Oh.
Yeah.
And a court basically says that cell phone searches are unconstitutional. So if you have stuff on your phone, the cops people will have to get a warrant in order to search your phone. So your phone is your private property and is protected under the, if you can remember this, Fourth Amendment.
They can take the phone as evidence, but they can't look at it, open it up, and
start using it or anything like that.
Okay, so that's very good news.
Yes.
And hopefully that'll...
Yay, democracy. Well, it's actually we're a constitutional republic, but whatever. It's democracy. Let's see. There's one other thing I wanted to go over. I saw this. We saw this on CNN Tech. Is after Boston, the pros and cons of surveillance cameras. Actually, it basically goes over how they had all these cameras yet and the facial recognition, and it worked, but it didn't work. It didn't stop them. So that's our break right now. I'll be right back. Tech Club. I am Mish. Jason's here too. Might as well get into our topic a little bit here. How the internet works and how email works. Well, as we all learned many years ago, that the internet is a series of tubes. And you can just dump chuck it in. No. The internet actually is, well, when you think of the bandwidth and how to get data through, it is like a tube. You can only fit so much through a hole. But basically what the internet is just interconnected networks on a big wire, network. Basically, it's all wires connecting a bunch of computers, a bunch of servers, and whatnot. But in reality, when you send a document or a request to Google or something like that, what is happening in the background? Basically, everything on the internet is packets. And we'll use a lot of analogies here because I'm sending Jason, who lives in Cincinnati. I don't know why he would want to live in Cincinnati. No, I'm just kidding. And I'm in Virginia. And I'm sending him a document. It's 150 pages. But normally you would just, get a big envelope and throw all 150 pages and address it and send it to him. That's not how the internet works. Because back in the days, you didn't have much bandwidth, so you had to send little bytes or little snippets, and that's where the byte comes from, little snippets of the data at a time. In the sense, instead of a big, broad, push, you're sending a little line, so that then you can fit multiple lines or multiple streams through it. The reason why this was a good idea was that they had what's called packet handlers, where basically each packet had like a serial number. This is packet 1 of 2. Okay, this is packet 3 of 5, but it came in first. So if I send that document to Jason, and instead of sending it in one big envelope, I send it in an individual. So it's 150 envelopes. It's going off to him. Yes, costed a lot of money because the way mail is, but internet's doesn't cost anything. But some of those packets might have been routed, or those envelopes might have been routed through, Austin, Texas. So it's going to take a little longer for those packets to get to Jason. So he might get, the last half and a middle portion, and maybe a couple of the first ones. He doesn't have the full thing. So once he gets all of the packets, the actual packets, just like how it has page numbers. Now, there is something called packet loss, where this usually happens on, LAN, where basically it knows that it's going to lose some stuff, so it sends out, in a sense, double. So, I want to make sure Jason gets this document. So I send out 2 sets of, I copied everything, everything's identical. I sent him 2 different versions, 2 different copies of the same thing. And it has the same information, but it knows, because it's kind of has some information, it's been programmed, that the second one is copied. If you didn't get the first one, use this packet. And so it fills in the gaps. Because it may have been, it didn't go to Cincinnati, it went to, I don't know, Rangoon, which is very far away. So that packet is gone forever. So when you send a request out to, say Google, I want to go to CNN.com, Communist News Network. 1 or 2 packets leave your computer, which is basically that request. It's just a little information. It says Google.com, and it gives your basically where you are, and then it sends it off to the internet. I'm passing over the modem router thing because that's pretty much most people understand. You need a connection to the internet. It's not just magically there, although some people think it is, which is okay. It does work like magic because it's a pain in the butt. So once you send that request out, it starts sending the stream back to you. It's kind of like invitation only. And most people will have what's called routers. Request information inside of it. And what that does is it actually is holding a little ticket like a bouncer. As that request or that information is being streamed back to you, Google.com, it says, I have a ticket. Oh, you're allowed through. Go ahead. And it then routes it to your computer. Now, a lot of times there's packets going every which way. Like I said about the email to Jaison or the letters. The one that went to Rangoon, couple may have ended up other places. Those are just, actually, there is no word for them. It's really just crap packets getting sent because it's kind of sent out like a shotgun, just sent out everywhere because it has to find where it's supposed to go. Now, we will be right back, and I'll continue my ramblings on how internet works.
Welcome back to the Tech Club here on the RBN Network. I think I'm still Jaison. Mish is still here.
I'm still here, and I'm still Mish.
Before the break, Mish was actually kind of going over how the internet works.
Very low. Is that considered high level or low level?
How about medium level?
Well, you don't want to blow out speakers. Yes.
I just wanted to say on that was, and that's what people have commonly seen TCP/IP, or heard of that term. Those are those packets that Mish was referring to, bouncing along on the internet. The internet was, of course, developed to withstand crashes and downtimes. If an area of the country was hit with a nuclear bomb, the internet would automatically reroute to the next closest way to get to the recipient.
Correct. So, it was actually developed by the
government
and the military through a lot of the universities had the infrastructure to run this stuff.
And as a side note, yes, there is a commonly called the Internet that is out there that certain universities and the government have access to. I think it's something like, 100 times faster than what we common folks can use.
We low-level people. We monsters.
So the next thing in that's basically how it works. Now the question arises, well, how do these little packets know where to go? They go on the internet and go, I'm lost. They don't have a GPS.
They don't have GPS? Maybe they're in Western Virginia where they have no service or nothing.
They may not have GPS, but they have a telephone book to look up. And that telephone book is called DNS, or a domain name server. And what that domain name server does is it houses, so when you do Mish's example, google.com, when you type in google.com in your browser, the internet doesn't know it as google.com, it knows it as its IP address.
Almost like its physical address.
That's its physical address, because every computer...
123 Fake Street.
Every computer on the internet needs an IP address.
Kind of like a phone number. You have to have a phone number in order to call somebody.
Absolutely. So, for example, one of Google's IP addresses is 74.125.224.177. So if I were to actually type that into a browser instead of google.com, I will get to google.com.
A little quicker, too.
So when you send out that request through those packets, look for a DNS server to find out where does google.com reside, or how be housed, or homed, or whatever. So that DNS server then says, oh, okay, Google.com's IP address is this, and go that way. And it just goes that way and hits Google.com's servers. And that's why some websites are not easily accessible right away. So, for example, typing in Google.com in your browser, you have a local DNS server on your own end. The browser will look that up. If it doesn't have the answer that it's looking for there, it'll then go to the next DNS server, which is typically your ISP, your internet provider. So let's say you're a Comcast user. It'll go to one of Comcast's local DNS servers. If it's not there, it'll then go up the hierarchy chain and go to one of the higher level DNS servers. And keep doing this until eventually it has the information it needs, and then ultimately goes to its destination.
Or it comes back to you and says, you typed it in wrong, Dippo.
Right. If it cannot be found at all, that's when it just takes a little while because it's going through all those DNS servers and there's no reference to it. Now,
error 404.
That's typically your error 404 file not found type of thing that you get. And that's why if you go to Google.com, may not have been the best example because these DNS servers cache the information for about 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously everybody and their brother goes to Google.com, so pretty much every information it needs for Google.com. But if you're going to a site that's not always accessible, maybe I shouldn't say that word, not always
not as popular.
Not as popular. I don't know. A site like, Joe Schmo's GarageSale.com. It'll take your browser a few extra seconds to find where that web server sits.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why some websites just take a little extra longer time to get to display it on your screen. But if you go to that same website later in the day, you'll probably will have noticed it shows up right away. And that's because that DNS server has that information cached for the day. And typically, like I said, it's like 24 hours. So they get flushed out pretty much at night. So if you go at 11:30 at night and go the next morning, probably take an extra few moments to show up again. So that's like the telephone book of the internet. And those are those DNS servers that have been increasingly coming under attack.
Mm-hmm.
In the olden days, DNS servers were open, anybody could access them. I mean, when I set up a website, for example, I set DNS entries through my hosting company. So I can set up a website, which will then get updated on their DNS record, and that propagates to all the other DNS servers. Well, bad guys have found a way to take control of some DNS servers. And when they do this, this is when it's extremely difficult for you, the web server and user, to really figure out if this is a valid website, because
Crazy Ivan's site that looks like Google.com.
Right, because somebody has hacked into the DNS server and is basically redirecting traffic to a different server. And it is easy to duplicate what a website looks like.
I mean, you can just pull all the information. That's what they do with phishing attacks. They just pull all the same information. So here's your script, here's this, or not, and you just put something else on the page that you want.
And that's, again, hard for the web browser to know what has happened, because it was a redirect, but you're still sitting at a website that says bankofamerica.com if you had typed that in. Some of the updates to the web browsers, which are like Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, Apple Safari. I know Internet Explorer, Chrome, and Firefox will do this, but it'll tell you when it was redirected to somewhere else. It kind of knows that, well, it should go here, but I'm really being sent over there.
Yeah.
And the latest browsers will, come up like red. The address bar will come up red and say something's not right. So those are DNS servers. In all of this, of course, you can see how fast it works. It's, when I say a couple extra seconds, it really is just a couple extra seconds.
But, it's doing a billion things at once.
Right. Yeah, TCP/IP, I mean, it's pretty hardened. Works pretty well.
One of the things that many technologists, whatever you want to call them, nerds who spend way too much time thinking about this stuff, commented that TCP/IP is probably one of the most, it's like the best thing ever for internet, because it's, like Jason said, it's robust, it's hard to break, and it's fast. So you go to Google.com, but there are issues amongst it, kind of the old 1911 gun. It's a handgun. It's heavy. It was made, 1911. It was first designed. That is probably the old tried and true. Nobody can really, they made better versions, but that's pretty much a good gun right there. It's the same. It's old, but it works and works well, and it's never quite kind of failed. So kind of the same kind of thing. Now, before the break, maybe we can go over a little bit on the email and how that works, and how all of this kind of culminates into other things that you do on the internet with regards to Skyping and whatnot.
I just want to mention one other thing with the internet, which comes into play while some products don't work as well, phone service. There's something called latency. And latency is what is the response time, basically, that you get back from the web server or the server, phone server or whatever. And gamers are very familiar with latency.
Anybody uses Usenet.
Satellite service the latency is
super high,
higher than normal. Because if you think about it, specifically with satellite, what happens is your modem, your dish actually, you go type in bankofamerica.com, you're typing that in, the satellite transceiver is sending it up to the satellite. In this case, let's say Usenet's operation center. That operation center is then sending that request out to the World Wide Web.
Yes.
Bank of America comes back with a response, goes to the network operation center of Usenet, goes back up to the satellite, goes down to your dish, and to your computer, basically.
And the slowest point of that is actually your dish to the satellite, because you don't have a traditional microwave antenna that's going up there, so it's like an old man.
Right, so So the latency there, that delay, is what causes problems. That's why folks who use have a hard time using Skype or any VoIP or voice over IP connection through satellite. Is hard to use because of that latency. You'll say something, and then
eventually they'll say something because they just heard it. It's say I say, "Hi, Jason." 1, 2, 3. He hears it. Then he can say, "Hi, Mish."
Right.
It takes too long, and the computer needs that instant request because it's waiting. It will time out if it takes too long. And so they've actually put a lot of things into computers. That's why when you browse something, it'll just sit there and spin for a while.
And most folks are okay with this because you're browsing a web page. I mean, so what if Bank of America takes an extra second or two to pop up on your screen? But if you're playing the game, or if you need that instant response time from the other person that's playing with you, or the phone service, it's just not working. And most of us see this almost daily when they watch the news. If the anchor is interviewing it takes that reporter an extra 2-3 seconds to respond. That's latency. They're used to that and expect that. That's why it's done
they'll ask the question
smoothly.
And it's like, yeah. And that's why they actually are trained to respond very quickly to questions and try to fill in gaps. Because there is especially with video or audio over a long period of time, long distance, it does take a long time, and people will say, "Why aren't they talking?"
Anyway, so I just want to go over latency because that can be a big issue.
This is true. Basically, how email works is the same way that one letter works, but in that email, what's crammed in there is the information that's different than just a normal packet of I want to go to Google. Although it has some of the same things, a header, a footer, and a body. And this is some journal information too. When you send an email out, I'm sending an email to Jason, and I put his email address in. That goes into the header. And that goes out to, say, it's jason@smc.io. I write my message, "Hey, how's it going? Let's do lunch sometime this week." Mish. Send. When it goes out, it first goes out, depends on, of course, your email service, because if you are on the web, like using Gmail, it's all pretty much superfluous, just always on their server. But what happens if you have a POP account, a post office protocol, or just basically a normal email account, you send out your email on a specific port, kind of like how you send your email office or the outbox in your office. It goes in the outbox, and then eventually someday you'll get a response in your inbox. So when you send that email or mail out, it goes to their server because you're sending it to Jason@smc.io or Gmail or whatever. That actually gets sent to that server. Then it looks up and sees, do I have an email address as user of this? And it says, yes, I do. And then puts it in his inbox. And that's why a lot of people can do these delivery confirmations and read receipts, which basically will tell you that the server got it. It's sitting in his inbox somewhere. Then you get another one that says, Jason, open your email. And then basically, and it gives you a time stamp. In the email contents and the header and the footer are information of where it's been. If you think about the old days when they used to use trunks to travel, they would get stickers from all the places that they've been. Same kind of thing occurs with the email. If it's hit this server, if it's hit this server, it will actually give you a track. So actually, if you plotted it out, if you had all these servers on a map, you could actually see where it bounced around a couple billion times.
Called hops.
Yep, hops. And it's not the kind that goes in beer and makes you go sleepy buys, because hops is a good sleepy thing because it makes you tired. That's why people in hopsberry fields, the workers will just fall asleep, because as they're cutting, they're disrupting them, and it gets in their nose and they fall asleep, which is common. So I will continue on receiving email when we get back. Tech Club, and I am still rambling on about how things work on a technical level. I am Mish, that's Jason, and I'm just going to go over briefly because we only have like 5 minutes. When the email arrives at your inbox, it comes in something called port, different everything than is basically how your outbox. That's the reason why you have an inbox and an outbox. Now it's just sitting in your inbox waiting for you to open it up and do something with it. There are other types of email, I guess you say, protocols, which are two ways of doing it. Whereas POP, then there's IMAP, and then there's Exchange. Each one, if you think of like regular mail, you have, your USPS, you got UPS, you got FedEx, all these different ways of sending something. Exchange, which is what we usually recommend for people that really just don't just send, cards to grandma, that wants some sort of backbone and wants a lot of, it be backed up.
And reliability, really.
Exactly. Is
portability.
Portability, exactly. Is Exchange, which is Exchange is basically like FedEx or UPS. It's door service, and it's specifically going to you. Or even, I'd say even more so, would probably be like a hand courier. They picked it up. It's sitting in, and you have your own courier service doing everything for you. So it's very secure. So that is, that's why, we talked about before how if you send something out on the internet, this works also with regards to the regular packets of the regular internet, like if you're on Facebook and whatnot. It's like sending it to the whole world, because you're basically sending unencrypted information out into the world that anybody can see, and which is generally the government. That's going to do something bad with it, and so. And Jason lost probably $1,000 in solitaire.
And I know a lot of this was maybe higher level than most folks are used to, somewhat detailed, but it's good to understand how some things work.
If you know how it works, then you can actually say, I don't understand anything about email. Well, I just give you a brief, yet not complicated, very high level introduction in how email and packets work, so that like when you send out an email, it might get there, it might not. People expect email to work all the time, every day, perfectly, but with the internet it's always on. It's like your TV. Sometimes that don't work either. You get snow, which is basically latency, and if you're using old school ones, snow is usually that's packet loss right there. There's some sort of interference, and that's where you get that snow from.
Right. It's good to know, at least understand a little bit when something breaks down.
Because you got to break it down.
It's easy. I mean, even though the internet is designed to, as I mentioned earlier, withstand even a nuclear blast, there are issues.
Mm-hmm.
Cables can be cut. Overlap. Big news. Here's our show for the week. Stay safe. We'll see you next Sunday. Have a good one.